want? Just tell me what you want. Jesus. Oh, oh no, 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 no. Jeez. Oh! Oh, no, 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 no! No! It wasn't me! It was Ignacio!
Welcome to ScreenCrush, I'm Ryan Airy, and this last episode of Better Call Saul had us all saying,
Yeah, bitch!
That's right, Walter White and Jesse Pinkman made their long-awaited debut in the Breaking Bad prequel series, and it was glorious.
No details.
Dude, to stand in front of a meth lab, it's not like he ain't gonna put two and two together.
He is on a need-to-know basis.
So we're going to break down this episode, talk about all the Breaking Bad Easter eggs that you missed, but we're also going to talk about why these Easter eggs are in the show, what they all mean, and how this is going to propel the story to its end game.
We're in the end game now.
So this episode of Better Call Saul was titled Breaking Bad, and this episode took place during Breaking Bad's second season, 8th episode, which was titled Better Call Saul. The episode opens with Saul laying on the floor of Walt and Jesse's RV, aka the Crystal Ship.
Crystal Ship definitely travels.
I'm sorry, you said the what? Travels?
Crystal Ship.
Saul has a bag over his head, his hands are tied behind his back, and he's begging for his life.
Guys, come on. Talk to me. Habla, por favor.
Now this scene is showing us the moments in between this scene and this scene.
Oh, oh no, 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 no.
You can hear equipment bouncing around, glass clinking. Then we get a shot of a round bottom flask, their iconic fold-out lawn chairs, a shot of the infamous RV keys, a barrel of methylamine, and a jar of red phosphorus, which you may remember is what Walt used to escape from Emilio and Crazy 8 in the first episode of the show. Then we hear Saul say, "Why are we going off-road?" and he begs to not go to the desert.
Whatever this is, can we please don't do it in the desert?
A reference to Saul's disdain for the desert following several bad experiences.
Oh, Jesus. It's always a desert.
As the van stops, we see a figure approaching Saul from the passenger seat of the RV. This is Jesse. If you look closely, you can see Jesse's black ski mask with red accents and a fluffy topper. These are the same masks that Walt buys in Season 1 when he and Jesse are stealing a barrel of methylamine.
The hell is this?
That's all they had.
Then you go to another store. If this is all they had, you're in the wrong place. Let's put it on.
Saul continues to plead for his life, sprinkling in bits of Spanish, showing us that he actually thinks it's a drug cartel that's abducted him.
Whatever the problemo, we can fix it with dinero. Mucho dinero. Mucho, mucho, mucho dinero.
As Saul is escorted out of the RV, the door closes behind him, revealing the iconic 5 bullet holes covered in duct tape.
Come on, talk to me, guys, huh?
Now, these bullet holes were shot through the door in Breaking Bad's pilot episode when Walt escapes Emilio and Crazy 8. We then see Saul thrown to his knees and the bag removed from his head, recreating the exact same moment from Breaking Bad.
Oh, no, 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 no.
The intro then rolls and we jump forward to the post-Breaking Bad timeline. This is indicated by the footage being in black and white. We then see Saul's former assistant, Francesca, for the first time in the post-Breaking Bad world, and she seems to now be managing an apartment complex.
It's a simple up and down motion, like you're used to.
She's still living in Albuquerque. Remember, she didn't get vacuumed like Saul, Walt, or Jesse. In fact, the last time we saw Francesca chronologically was in the Breaking Bad timeline, but in the series Better Call Saul.
All right, that's it. I'm going.
Do me a favor. Take those with you. Drop them off at least 5 miles from here in separate dumpsters.
So as Francesca is driving away, we can tell that she's living in fear after the events of Breaking Bad. Now, Francesca pulls up to an abandoned gas station. This is actually the same gas station that Jesse and Hank go to in Breaking Bad Season 3, Episode 4, Green Light. Francesca has a set time that she is to receive a phone call from Saul at the payphone outside of this gas station. While Saul and Francesca are on the phone, Saul asks how hot he is. Francesca tells him that she's still followed, her mail's still open before she gets it, and her phone still clicks every time she picks it up, meaning that the feds are listening in on all of her calls. Saul then says,
"So the maestro buying the farm, it didn't change anything?"
Which means, did Walter White, aka Heisenberg's death, not take some of the heat off this case? Francesca then tells Saul that it didn't help, and if anything, it made things worse. She says that Skylar White got her deal, which is a reference to this scene from Breaking Bad's finale.
Those numbers are GPS coordinates.
That's where they'll find Hank and Steve Gomez. Now you trade that for a deal with the prosecutor.
Francesca then says that the only two people left for them to come after are Saul and Jesse Pinkman, but that Jesse Pinkman's car was found down at the border, a reference to the Breaking Bad movie El Camino.
Think you'll be heading to Mexico?
No, not Mexico.
Right on, even better. Leave it near the border. Hide it, kinda, but yo, don't hide it so good the cops can't find it.
And it's also revealed that all of Saul's shell corporations are gone. The salons, laser tag, all of it gone.
Damn it.
So this might actually be what spurs Saul on to start making more money in this episode. Maybe now that his nest egg is depleted, he decides to return to a life of crime. Then he asks about Kubi and Huel.
How's Kubi?
No idea.
All right, how about Huel?
Now Francesca doesn't know what Kubi is up to, but she does have news on Huel, which is great because the last time we saw Huel, he was stuck in a room and waiting, and for all we knew, he was still there. She says that the cops let him go and that no charges were brought due to the DEA holding him under false pretenses. This is a reference to Breaking Bad Season 5, Episode 13, when Hank and Steve Gomez tricked Huel into thinking that Saul had sold him out and that Walt was coming to kill him.
And it's just a matter of time before you end up like this.
Oh man, I swear to God, I didn't know he was gonna kill him, man. I didn't know he was gonna kill him.
But then Saul finds out that after everything went down, Kim Wexler called Francesca to check in on her and Saul.
She asked about me.
So I'm not going to dive too deep into speculation on what was said, but it definitely seems like Saul and Kim will reunite sometime in the series finale. Our next Walt and Jesse scene takes place after the scene that we've already seen in Breaking Bad. This scene shows Walt, Jesse, and Saul all back on board the Crystal Ship.
I'm sorry, said the what?
Crystal Ship.
This is, of course, a reference to this moment in Season 5.
Oh, I mean, the Crystal Ship did pretty good for us.
The Crystal Ship.
Yeah, that's what I called it.
Getting to see Saul actually in the RV for the first time was awesome, and watching Saul piece together that Walt and Jesse are the ones who cook the blue stuff.
If you cook the blue stuff, then that means you're Igor, and that makes you your Heisenberg.
It was just nostalgic watching the three of them together again. Saul with his quips, Walt and Jesse bickering.
I was enjoying the Laurel and Hardy vibe, but I'm not such a fan of the Bickersons.
When the RV won't start, Walt says that they just need to give the fuel pump a moment to cool down. And if you notice, there is a close-up of Walt taking the keys out of the ignition so the battery doesn't drain. A reference to Breaking Bad Season 2, Episode 9, 4 Days Out, when Jesse leaves the key in the ignition and the battery dies, stranding them in the desert, which is the very next episode chronologically after this occurs. We then get to hear Jesse ask Saul about Lalo.
Who?
Lalo. Thought some dude named Lalo sent us. You seem pretty freaked out.
Now, Lalo's first mention was in this scene in Breaking Bad.
Lalo didn't send you? No, Lalo!
But the character never appeared in the series because at this point, he was dead. But we do get to meet Lalo in Better Call Saul, and he serves as one of the series' main antagonists.
It's gonna be like I'm not even here.
Then comes one of the best shots in all of Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul, a shot of the grave where Walt and Jesse were threatening to bury Saul. But then, a shot of Gene, Saul's new identity, as he lies in bed, cross-fading into frame, as if he is now in this grave. This symbolizes that while Saul wasn't put in a grave that first night he met Walt and Jesse, him going into business with him ultimately leads to him being put in a metaphorical grave. He is no longer Saul Goodman or Jimmy McGill, he's Gene Takavik, living in hiding, no friends, no family, no law degree, and no Kim. And our next Breaking Bad reference is when Gene is sitting at home and receives a package in the mail. It's a swing master like the one we've seen him use many times in Breaking Bad. That leads us to our next scene that takes place during the Breaking Bad timeline.
You know, LBJ used to have his underlings give him reports while he was on the shitter.
And here's a deep cut for you. When Saul makes his reference to LBJ, it reminded me of Walter White himself, Bryan Cranston, doing the same in his LBJ film.
I can't hear a goddamn thing you're saying, Humphrey. Come on over here.
This scene shows us Mike Ehrmantraut, Saul's PI, reporting on Walt and Jesse. And we're still in Breaking Bad's second season, Episode 8, Better Call Saul. If you remember in this scene, we hear Saul say to Walt that he had his PI track him down.
You really are a chemistry teacher.
How did you find me?
It should be much, much harder for people to track you down. My PI charged me for 3 hours, so I seriously doubt it took him more than one.
Mike warns Saul to not get involved with Walt and Jesse and that they're nothing but trouble.
I wouldn't go near him. He's a complete amateur.
This scene is emotional because, had Saul listened, Mike would still be alive and Saul wouldn't be in hiding. In this scene, we also got to hear a reference to Gustavo Fring.
Is that your appraisal, or is that what he who shall not be named says about him?
He didn't say anything. The guy's small potatoes.
Now, the final scene we have in the Breaking Bad timeline was Saul approaching Walt's school, which will lead directly into the scene that we've already seen take place in Breaking Bad. We also got a look at Walt's 2004 Pontiac Aztek in the parking lot, and you'll notice that it's parked in the handicapped spot because Walt Jr. rides to school with Walt. So all of these references are really cool, fun Easter eggs to Breaking Bad, but what I loved most about this episode is they're not just used for fan service. These Breaking Bad scenes are used to reinforce the story that Saul is living out in the present day. So go back to the parallel of Saul's empty grave compared with Gene in the present day. This is showing that in both timelines, he's about to begin a journey that will lead to his demise. All throughout the episode, these two storylines parallel one another. Gene has an angry, violent phone conversation with somebody who we can presume is Kim.
Looking for Kim Wexler. I believe she works there.
This is very similar to the violent confrontation that he has with Walt and Jesse. In both timelines, Saul Goodman encounters a man with cancer.
What are those for? Cancer.
So what's brilliant about the way this episode is intercut is because we see two different versions of Saul making the same exact mistake. In the past, Mike warns him to stay away from Walt because he's an amateur. But Jimmy gets this itch. He can tell that there's a lot of money to be made with Heisenberg, and he thinks that he can be the one in control. He can be the kingpin manipulating him. And he's making the same mistake in the future, becoming a kingpin of his own little crime ring in Omaha, Nebraska, where he's motivated by greed. But I also think he's not just motivated by greed here. He's motivated by wanting to get proxy revenge on Walt. So when his lackey says he won't rob a man with cancer, Gene says,
Guy with cancer can't be an asshole? Huh, believe me, I speak from experience.
So when Saul finds out that this man has cancer, for a moment, he seems like he feels guilty, like he may not go through with it. But then he looks at him and he thinks of Walter White and how Walter White ruined his life. And all of a sudden he thinks, nah, screw this guy. And then the episode ends with two more parallel scenes. One that we've already talked about, where Saul is outside of Walt's high school and he decides he's going to try to recruit Walt into his greater realm of crime. And like we said before, this was the original sin. This was the moment that began Saul's downfall. And we see the same kind of scene play out at the end of the episode, with Gene breaking into the home of this financial advisor, who's probably going to wake up because it's been too many hours since they drugged him.
Relax.
There are still 2 more episodes of Better Call Saul's final season to come, and we know that Walt and Jesse are going to be back for more. So what scenes from Breaking Bad do you think we'll see pan out from Saul's perspective in next week's episode of Better Call Saul? Let us know in the comments below, or you can @ me on Twitter. And if it's your first time here, please subscribe and smash that bell for alerts. For ScreenCrush, I'm Ryan Airy.